Hi, I'm Congressman Kweisi Mfume. Let me welcome you all to Research America's 26th Annual Advocacy Awards Program. You know, before being reelected to Congress, I was very proud to serve as Vice Chair of Research America's Board of Directors. And so I'm very familiar with the rigorous process underlying the selection of these prestigious awards. Each year, the Alliance honors an extraordinary group of individuals and organizations unified by their meaningful impact on our nation's contributions to medical health and scientific progress. This year's awardees are by no means no exception to the rule when it comes to having an extraordinary impact on public health and on science. Suffice it to say that the contributions, ongoing and enduring, of these individuals and organizations to our nation's public health will take your breath away, as will our next guest, the Young People's Chorus of New York City. Prepare to be inspired by them and certainly by the awardees that Research America is honoring today. And so I want to thank my friends, Research America Chair Susan Dentzer, President and CEO Mary Woolley, and all of the members and staff of Research America for their advocacy day in and day out, and for the work they put in to be what is sure to be a meaningful and joyous celebration of research and public health leaders. Thank you all for participating in this annual and august occasion celebrating science, research, and advocacy. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Lucy.
And I'm Rio. We're members of the Young People's Chorus of New York City, and we're so grateful to celebrate the honorees of Research America's Advocacy Awards Program through a song that we were very fortunate to record together during the pandemic titled Never Give Up.
This song is for the scientists, public healthcare workers, and those who never gave up these past 2 years. With people like Research America's honorees by our side, we will always have each other's backs, and nothing can keep us down for long.
Please enjoy the Young People's Chorus of New York City performing Never Give Up.
Mary Woolley, Research America's President and CEO. Thank you, Kweisi, for joining us in opening our 26th Advocacy Awards Program. We continue to value your contributions as Vice Chair of our board and also value our continuing partnership as you serve the public's interest in Congress. And thank you to the Young People's Chorus of New York City for that inspiring song and the reminder to never give up. It's a pleasure to welcome all of you and thank you for joining today's program. A special welcome to the members of the Research America Alliance. For over 3 decades, Research America has fought for more robust federal funding and a policy environment in which scientific discovery and innovation in every sector can thrive. Today, we honor and recognize those who are exemplars of advocacy for research and innovation, medicine, public health, and science more broadly. Our 2022 honorees inspire us. Today, you will hear their remarkable stories up close. During today's program, I hope that you might consider making a donation. In the menu at the top of your screen, you'll find a donation button. Your generous contributions are integral to the work we do, and we can't thank you enough. Once again, thank you for joining us to recognize and celebrate these exceptional individuals and organizations. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Susan Denser, Research America Chair and the President and CEO of America's Physician Groups. Susan.
Thank you so much, Mary. It's truly an honor and a privilege to work with you and to serve alongside our wonderful colleagues on Research America's Board of Directors. I extend a warm welcome to all of our honorees, our speakers, and our special guests. Thank you so much for joining us for our annual awards event. I'm very pleased to thank our corporate event host, Johnson & Johnson, our collaborating sponsor, Act for NIH Foundation, our Future Innovators sponsor, Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, our program partners, American Medical Association, Bloomberg Philanthropies, Horizon Therapeutics, Merck, RWJF Special Contributions Fund of the Princeton Area Community Foundation, Sanofi, and all of our tremendous supporters whose names are highlighted on your screen. And a very special thank you to the Science Philanthropy Alliance for joining us in celebrating the 2022 Advocacy Award honorees. Thank you to our award benefactors, the Jeffrey Bean Foundation, the Gordon and Laura Gund Foundation, Anne Lurie, Dr. Herbert Pardes, the Rosenfeld Heart Foundation, the Rogers Family Foundation, the Whitehead Institute for Biomedical Research, the Whitehead Charitable Foundation, and Johnson & Johnson, which just this year endowed the Outstanding Achievement in Public Health Awards. Thank you. Throughout the program, please take a moment to see all of our sponsors and partners. To do so, just go to the menu at the top of your screen. During today's Advocacy Awards, we will hear from some extraordinary leaders in science, medicine, public health, research, policy, communications, and more. Now let me turn to our very much admired colleague, Dr. Bill Hite, Executive Vice President, Chief of External Innovation, Medical Safety, and Global Public Health Officer at Johnson & Johnson, and a fellow Research America board member. Bill, our great thanks.
It is my honor to represent Johnson & Johnson, the corporate host of today's award presentation ceremonies, and to celebrate Research America's 26th year of honoring distinguished leaders in medical research advocacy. The COVID-19 pandemic inspired scientists around the globe, from government, academia, and industry, who collaborated to address our generation's greatest public health challenge. For this reason and many more, we are honored to host this year's ceremony. Beginning with the rapid reporting of the nucleotide sequence of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, to the discovery and development of new vaccines, monoclonal antibody therapies, and small molecule antivirals, the speed by which the medical research community responded was spectacular. Who would have predicted that vaccines would be available to prevent COVID-19 disease in about 1 year? Our willingness to work together enabled quick action. Each of us brought to the table our expertise to drive towards the common goal of combating this virus. Fundamental discoveries in mRNA biology, drug discovery and development, formulation, regulatory science, manufacturing, drug distribution, and of course funding, we all played our parts, orchestrated by NIH, CDC, FDA, and industry leadership. We achieved healthcare miracles through collaboration, innovation, and ultimately celebration as we aligned around the shared mission of better health for humanity. It was a clarion call to apply the same urgency to other life-devastating diseases like dementia, antimicrobial drug resistance, cancer, HIV, neglected tropical diseases, and many others. In addition, the pandemic highlighted the need for preparedness for the next shockwave that will surely come. Today's awards honor individuals and organizations whose efforts have helped advance a broad swath of medical health and scientific research. We congratulate these exceptional individuals and institutions for their accomplishments. I also recognize Research America for their 33 years of visionary leadership to make medical research a national priority, to champion the role of science in society, and to engage the public in science and the value of investing in innovation. At Johnson & Johnson, our focus on innovation and our commitment to global public health is grounded in our credo, which describes our responsibilities to the patients, doctors and nurses, mothers and fathers who use our products, along with our employees, communities, and our shareholders. It calls on us to experiment with new ideas and to develop innovative programs. Our credo is also our moral compass, demanding that we operate ethically, safely, and with integrity. At Johnson & Johnson, we believe that a great idea can come from anywhere, and we combine deep internal expertise with a broad network of external innovation activities that connects us to the external world of invention. You know, our industry relies on scientists like those we celebrate today, whose curiosity drives research and the collaborations that enable discoveries to become products. Today's honorees are true champions of the scientific endeavor, and I thank them for their stewardship toward a brighter, healthier future. It is my great honor to celebrate their contributions to better health for everyone, everywhere. Thank you, Research America, for the invaluable work that you do, and congratulations to all of today's honorees.
Hello, I'm Gordon Gund. I'm chairman of the Gund Investment Corporation, but I'm also most proud of the fact that my late wife, Laura, and I were part of the founding group of the Foundation Fighting Blindness, an organization which we started over 50 years ago. I am happy today to be able to present the Research America Gordon and Laura Leadership Award. And this is an award presented annually to individuals who've had significant impact on advocacy for all kinds of health research in this country. And I'm very pleased to be able to present that. Jed Manacharian has had a great impact and provided tremendous energy to the effort to advocate on behalf of the National Institutes of Health, who provide crucial research on all fronts with all forms of diseases that are helping to improve the well-being of the citizens of this country and all around the world. He's well deserving of this award. Congratulations to you, Jed. And I'm really happy to move this introduction along to two very important members of Congress who are in their own right tremendous advocates for this kind of research and great leaders in the Congress. First is Congresswoman Diana DeGette, who is a congresswoman from Colorado, and Congressman Fred Upton, who is a congressman from the state of Michigan.
Hi, I'm Congresswoman Diana DeGette of Colorado.
And I'm Congressman Fred Upton of Michigan.
In 2015, Fred and I came together and we put forth a bipartisan plan to modernize how our nation researches and develops new cures and treatments for some of the most difficult diseases.
You know, and that effort led to the passage of 21st Century Cures, which was widely hailed as a tremendous success and the most important piece of legislation enacted in that Congress.
As a result of this landmark legislation, researchers and scientists across this country now have a better understanding of the human brain. We've increased funding for Alzheimer's research and cancer research, and we've developed new treatments for cystic fibrosis. And now we're on the cusp of finding a cure for sickle cell anemia.
So while Diana and I worked tirelessly for so many months, years, to get this important legislation passed, we never could have done it without the help and the support of people like Jed.
Amen. Like us, Jed is dedicated to improving our nation's biomedical research and committed to ensuring that our nation's brightest minds have the tools and the resources they need to help patients around the world.
So as the chair and the founder of the Act for the NIH, Jed has advocated for every year for increased funding for the NIH. And in doing so, he has helped fuel promising research aimed at finding the cures that all of us want and treatments to a wide range of diseases.
We're so thankful for Jed's tireless efforts and unwavering support over the years. And we couldn't think of a more fitting recipient of this year's Gordon and Laura Gund Leadership Award.
So, congrats, Jed. Keep up the good work. We look forward to seeing you soon.
And you deserve it.
Diana and Fred, your kind and generous words better describe both of you, who have worked so hard and done so much to advance cures. I would like to express our gratitude to Mary Woolley and the entire team and board of Research America for all of your incredible efforts to educate, advocate, and advance medical research. I am humbled to have our work recognized alongside such remarkable honorees. And I thank Laura and Gordon Gund for their inspirational leadership and endowment of this award. I share this honor with our extraordinary team at ACT for NIH. Past presidents Mike Stevens and Pat White remain trusted advisors. Current President Richard Terman, Vice President Rachel Pollack, Emily Williams, our advisory committee and board, and the Board of Visitors of MD Anderson are all invaluable partners. Our primary mission at ACT for NIH is to double the NIH budget. Even with the historic $12.6 billion, 42% increase to the NIH budget in the past 6 years, NIH funding levels are not even close to adequate to capitalize on all of today's great scientific opportunities. NIH funding drives our economy, reins in unsustainable healthcare costs, and spares millions across the globe from the ravages of disease. The cost is billions, the return is trillions, and it's priceless to patients and their families. One of the honorees here tonight is both chair of House Appropriations and chair of the subcommittee that funds NIH. Chair Rosa DeLauro, my dear friend, was seeking the biggest budget increase ever for NIH in fiscal year 22. We are also pleased that Rosa is being honored alongside Kay Granger, who is the ranking member of the full committee and also an NIH champion. NIH funding has become a bipartisan congressional priority. All the labor-age NIH congressional champions, Chair Rosa DeLauro, Congressman Tom Cole, Senator Patty Murray, Senator Roy Blunt, have all shown extraordinary leadership and a compassionate resolve to robustly increase NIH funding. Even though this was recorded on March 1st, I expect by tonight we are in a position to thank all of them once again for another year of multi-billion-dollar NIH budget increases. All the collaborative efforts of the research advocacy community to increase NIH funding would not have been nearly as successful if Dr. Francis Collins was not at the helm of NIH. There are many words to describe Francis: brilliance, compassion, integrity, grace, humility, among others. But the words that best describe how I and those that know him feel about him is hope and love. There is no higher calling than to improve the well-being of others, and there is no single action that will do more to advance our nation and improve the human condition than doubling the NIH budget. There are too many patients to be patient. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Herbert Pardes, Executive Vice Chairman of the Board of Trustees at New York Presbyterian Hospital and a Research America board member. The Herbert Pardes Family Award for National Leadership in Advocacy for Research recognizes individuals who have fought to convince our nation to assign a higher priority to research and the societal progress it fuels. No one is more deserving of this award than Neil Lane. Neil needs no introduction, but I am going to introduce him anyway. He currently serves as Senior Fellow in Science and Technology Policy at Rice University's Baker Institute for Public Policy. His public service includes overseeing NSF and OSTP. His impact far exceeds all of these roles. Neil devotes countless hours of his own time making the case that our nation undervalues and underinvests in science and technology. It's my pleasure to introduce now Neil and Dr. Kafui Jiraza, Associate Professor at Duke University Medical Center and a fellow Research America board member, for a conversation that I guarantee will make you think, make you smile, and inspire you to act. Kath, over to you.
Dr. Lane, it is such an honor and a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon, and congratulations again on your award. I saw a talk that you recently did, and you brought up this theme of a citizen scientist. And it made me think a lot about one of my favorite citizen scientists. He was a physicist like yourself, Benjamin Franklin, a citizen scientist who played such an important role in the founding of our country. And as I think about recent times, whether it's challenges of a pandemic or the social unrest or disinformation, I think about the role of scientists in figuring out how to help our society navigate that. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about the role that scientists could be playing in our current times.
Well, it's a real pleasure and, of course, an honor to be with you today. It's obviously a very important topic, something that's been on my mind for a very long time. The idea of civic scientist, at least for me, in my own comments, my own talks and writings, it really was invented for me by a wonderful speechwriter when I was at the National Science Foundation. Patricia Garfinkel was her name. She invented this for a talk that I had to give, and I really liked the concept. And the concept really is very simple. It first of all, it sort of comes with the idea that we really all should be communicating science. It's a responsibility of us as scientists and engineers and technical professionals of all kinds. But the idea of the civic scientist is someone who contributes to his or her field through research and teaching and in other ways, but also takes time out during a career or another part of a career to engage the public, try to help the people understand more about what science is all about.
Yeah, I'm thinking so much about many of the young scientists that I mentor or those that I train in my lab who are balancing scientific experiments, raising young families. And I'd love to get your thoughts on how we best build systems to train and support these young scientists to become civilly engaged.
Yeah, I think communication, in my view, which is really what we're talking about, communicating with the public, with a lot of people who don't know science and whose careers are not oriented that way. The fact that it's increasingly important makes me think that it needs to be a larger part of our education, so our curriculum. So, undergraduates, yes, with any kind of STEM degrees, but graduate students as well. It actually equips our master students, our PhDs, for whatever career they go into. Communication is absolutely key, whether you're selling your own research results to your colleagues in a conference or through written publications or in other ways, or you're talking to a larger audience. So I think it's long past time that we make communication a part of our, not just our message to our students, but also what we're helping them learn.
Yeah, I've learned a lot from the young scientist about Twitter and Instagram. I'm wondering what sort of words of encouragement would you give to those young scientists?
I've always viewed science, teaching, research as a calling. There are a lot of sacrifices that go with a career like that, but it can be enormously rewarding. In many ways, I view public service the same way. It's a calling, and it also requires sacrifices, and I think you need a passion for it. But good news is these things are not mutually exclusive. So if you want a career in research and education, science in the private sector, or technology, engineering, that you can still do an enormous amount to help the people around you in society through this sort of civic scientist concept. How could you encourage them? Well, the world's got a lot of problems, and science and technology is going to be necessary, and increasingly international cooperation is going to be necessary to solve them. But without serious, sensible policy action, then we lose the benefits of the science and technology. It takes both. So the young people that are inclined toward the latter, good for them. They can have an enormous impact, just as they can do and have been doing, perhaps, in their research laboratories.
Well, we are so thankful for your words of encouragement. We're equally as grateful that you answered the calling, and we're grateful for all the sacrifices you've made. Congratulations again on this reward. We certainly couldn't imagine a more deserving recipient than you. So congratulations again to you.
Thank you very much.
Science is a beautiful word. Welcome to the Jeffrey Bean Cancer Research Center at Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York City, whose mission through science is to save lives. The Bean Center was created and founded by Nobel laureate Harold Varmus and my husband, Tom Hutton. In a moment, we are privileged to join a conversation between two legends, Dr. Varmus and our honoree, Dr. France Ann Cordova, astrophysicist. She is one of the highest accomplished scientists of our time. Her influence and inspiration on the next generation is so much more than her honors reflect, more than a builder of science. Dr. Cordova is a builder of positivity, a trailblazer in the workplace for women in science, building the gateway, a bridge for women who dare to reach for the stars, making you, France, a true rock star of science. She was once quoted saying, "Reaching goals isn't for pessimistic people." Right on, France. In 2014, as the 14th director of the National Science Foundation, NSF, Dr. Cordova attacked the critical impediments for women and minorities in science. She seized the power of the NSF to regulate its grants and to protect women and minorities from harassment. France showed decisive and urgent leadership, the hallmark of a true leader and builder of science, because inclusivity is the healthiest environment for scientific breakthroughs. It happens when a leader's vision is built on justice. It's the life force that underscores Dr. Cordova's leadership. France, You have a sense of human. It's the DNA of a scientist caring about what happens to humanity. Currently, Dr. Cordova is president and ex officio board member of Science Philanthropy Alliance. Not only has she served as president and chancellor of several universities celebrating Women's History Month, she was the youngest and first woman in 1993 to be named chief scientist at NASA. Dr. Cordova is the recipient of NASA's highest honor, the Distinguished Service Medal. Her scientific contributions have been in the areas of observational and experimental astrophysics, multispectral research on X-ray and gamma-ray sources, and spaceborne instrumentation. She was recognized as a Kilby Laureate in 2000 for directing her team to build the telescope for a key 1999 European Space Agency mission. In fact, she built the brain, the digital processing unit of the project. As the universe is expanding, so do her credits. You can learn more about Dr. Cordova's scientific and academic accomplishments at jeffreybeanfoundation.com. In my conversations with Dr. Cordova, I came away with the most pointed impression of her. Looking through her telescope of life, she blossoms humility. France shared with me that a builder of science must be a committed detective, following clues like the Nancy Drew story she adored as a child. She said a scientist must be committed to finding an answer, and it takes, quote, dogged persistence, patience, and consistency. They go hand in hand to uncover a mystery, and science requires it, close quote. There you have it, the art of science, curiosity. It's the DNA of a scientist that improves the quality of life for us all and our planet. I asked her, what is your proudest accomplishment as a builder of science? And without missing a beat, she said, being chancellor of the University of California, Riverside, she created the foundation for the first public medical school in the state of California in 40 years, recruiting a diverse team of Black and Hispanic doctors, which California, she said, desperately needed because its identity was changing. A communicator whose spirit reflects the power of positivity, France has transformed institutions she has led. An example, one of many, while serving as president of Purdue University in 2007 through 2012, Dr. Cordova never mentioned to me in our conversations how she inspired a generation so profoundly that I must share this. After she left Purdue, the student body on their own initiative, working in conjunction with the administration, creatively raised, are you ready? $100 million to rebuild their sports center of 420,000 square feet, naming in her honor the France A. Cordova Recreational Sports Center, usually an honor reserved for male coaches. Wow! Her Milky Way epitomizes progress. Respectfully, France, go girl! I must add, an athlete in her own right, France and her husband, Christian, will be climbing Mount Kilimanjaro this summer. She doesn't stop. They have 2 children, Anne Catherine, Annie, and Stephen, and 2 grandchildren, Everett and Spencer. Love those names. Imagine the stories they share on family outings looking at the stars. And speaking of stars, at the end of our conversation, I asked France what Van Gogh's Starry Night evokes in her as an astrophysicist. She paused and said, when I look up into the universe, I see a true starry night. Well, you can't beat that. The 8th wonder? Just look up. In closing, Helen Redding influenced a generation of women in the 1970s with her ballad, I Am Woman. Dr. Cordova offers her own coda. I am engineer, I am doctor, I am scientist, I am woman. Dr. Cordova, you are an extraordinary woman, a true rock star of science. Your zeal for life is brighter than any constellation. It is an honor, France, to be counted amongst your prestigious awards. With pride and humility, Tom and I present to you Research America's Jeffrey Bean Foundation 2022 Builder of Science Award. Yeah. And now, let's join the conversation between 2 legends, Doctors France Cordova and Harold Varmus.
Mara, thank you very much for that introduction. And France, it's great to see you. And as you must know, your friends and fans are very delighted by this award. This is a builder's award. Do you think of yourself as a builder?
I actually, when I was a young woman, I thought of myself as a detective. I wanted to solve mysteries, and I turned out to be one as an astrophysicist. More recently, as a family exercise, we all decided one evening to do the Myers-Briggs test and then compare results. And my profile turned out to be an architect. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. Actually, that's what I've done in my careers, is become an architect or builder. And I'd like to think that I thought deeply about whatever I'm engaged in, how to make it better, even transform it, and then design a way to do that.
Well, France, I've known you for almost 30 years, and I've seen you in many positions in a variety of institutions. Are there some constants in all these various activities you've undertaken, and are there some guiding principles that have informed the way you've worked?
I think, Harold, that there is a thread that runs through it all. And that's my goal, to make science come alive for others and for myself. The things that drove me to become a scientist I've retained throughout my careers: wonder and curiosity, a desire to know why and how, an appreciation of the beauty and the complexity of the world. When I go hiking around my home in Santa Fe, I pick up rocks and study the features of the landscape and think about the processes that produce them. And I do the same thing with my work, my studies of the cosmos. I try to understand the history and the evolution of objects. So that's a thread that goes throughout my career, because whatever I'm involved in, I try to understand it really deeply so that I can help it come alive in a new way.
Well, France, you were the chief scientist for NASA. And obviously that position was given to you because of your own work as an astrophysicist. Can you say a word or two about what your accomplishments were as a bench scientist, as a prober of the universe?
Well, my laboratory is the cosmos. And in graduate school and afterwards, I like to think broadly about things. And I was fortunate to be one of the young people that got to use facilities across the electromagnetic spectrum. And that was new in astrophysics. Before that, astronomers had just studied deeply in one particular wavelength. But now we had the whole world of space telescopes and ground-based telescopes open to us. And so we were on the vanguard of a new approach to studying the universe called multi-wavelength astrophysics. That is, to study individual sources over the whole electromagnetic spectrum. And I wrote or edited the first book in that field, co-sponsored the first conference in that, and ended up being a co-investigator on an experiment on the first multi-wavelength platform in space. A space mission, by the way, Harold, that is still flying today after 2 decades, called XMM Newton.
Good. Few of us are flying these days, so it's good to know you're flying. You've had you've had experience at NASA, but you've also run institutions, universities, and agencies. Can you just say a couple of things about how your aspirations have developed into accomplishments at those places?
Sure. As Chancellor of UC Riverside, I looked around and thought, what would be transformative for the region? And I've always asked that question, whatever job I've taken, whether it was at NASA or the National Science Foundation at universities. And in that instance, it was that we were a giant region of 4 million people without a public medical school. And of course, UC has a lot of great medical schools, but they're not in that region. And I also thought that there's a huge underserved region in that area, but also elsewhere of underrepresented people who are not getting the medical services they need. What if we started a new public medical school and recruited students from underrepresented groups that would then give back to their communities? And so that's what we launched. That's what we did. And it was really transformative.
I wish we had more time to talk about it, but our time is running out. Anything you'd like to add before we close?
Well, I want to really thank Research America for all the work they do, and especially its leader, Mary Woolley, for her incredible leadership. And I'd like to thank Mara and Tom Hutton for sponsoring this award.
Thank you very much. Great to talk to you.
Hello, I am Florence Rogers, better known as Pippi. I'm representing my 4 siblings and the Rogers Family Foundation. We are proud of our family's history with Research America, and I am elated to introduce the 2022 Paul G. Rogers Distinguished Organization Advocacy Award to the Alliance for Aging Research. This award embodies our late uncle, Congressman Paul G. Rogers, and his vision for advocacy for medical and health research. Well known as Mr. Health, he wanted to honor an organization that strongly advocates for medical, public health, or other health-related research. The Alliance for Aging Research is the nation's leading nonprofit organization dedicated to accelerating scientific discoveries to improve the universal experience of aging and health. Since 1986, federal support for aging research has more than tripled, allowing private research and development in aging-related health to reach all of the high time in research. These new discoveries are making a lasting difference to the lives of Americans. The Alliance has a special connection to the legacy of this award. The founder, Dan Perry, knew Uncle Paul personally and worked with him through his advocacy efforts. My family is amazed of the impact Paul had on advocacy as it still remains evident and alive today. Congratulations to the Alliance for Aging Research on receiving the 2022 Paul G. Rogers Distinguished Organization Advocacy Award. It is truly an honor to introduce Dan Perry, founder, and Sue Peshin, President and CEO of the Alliance for Aging Research. Dan and Sue, it's over to you.
Thank you, Pippi. That was a very nice introduction. I did indeed know and admire your uncle, but I was just one of many who were lifted up and encouraged to join him in the fight for medical research. In the 1980s, it was already pretty clear that there were going to be a lot more older Americans among us in the future. And the question was, would these future seniors be seen primarily as just a burden on healthcare? Or would these future citizens be healthy, vital, able to fend for themselves and to contribute to the goodwill, the overall will of the people? And for that, we would need still more research breakthroughs, and we would need vigorous advocacy for the National Institutes of Health and for the private sector to speed their innovations to help patients. The organization that you recognize with this award tonight is a pure reflection of the skill, intelligence, perseverance, and purpose of Sue Peshin, and we all owe her a great debt of gratitude. Sue.
Thank you, Dan. Your vision and your leadership at the Alliance has just been remarkable and taught me so much. Our initiatives that we have today are really, I think, building on all of the great work that you did leading the organization, including our This Is Growing Old podcast, where we get to meet with so many of the wonderful people that we've developed relationships with over the years, from patients to decision makers at some of the federal agencies and leading research institutes, to our Talk Nerdy to Me program, which stands for Nurturing Engagement and Research and Development with You, and is a giant network of patients and family caregivers that focuses on diseases of aging and gets folks to engage in the research process from the beginning, to all the things that we've done the last 2 years with the pandemic. I think one of the things that you really set the bar on was meeting the moment. And that's what we tried to do with the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think the secret sauce of the Alliance is our collaborations and partnerships across industry, research, federal agencies, and certainly with patients and family caregivers, and wonderful other advocacy organizations like Research America and many, many others. And we started the COVID vaccine education and equity project with Healthy Women and the National Council and Caucus on Black Aging that has more than 200 organizations, Project Loop for lowering out-of-pocket costs in Medicare Part D, and to make sure Medicare beneficiaries are able to smooth their costs over the benefit year, and a whole variety of education issues in heart valve disease, atrial fibrillation, vision loss. We look for gaps where maybe groups are not quite as focused. And that's where I think we're able to shine with those partnerships. So it's a complete honor to lead the organization, but to lead it with an amazing team of people, and I couldn't be more grateful. A question we ask our podcast guests is, what do you enjoy most about aging? So now I'd like to hear from the staff. You're on the podcast. What do you enjoy most about aging?
I most enjoy the freedom that often comes with aging. What I enjoy most is the wisdom gained that comes with aging.
I enjoy all the new experiences and making memories.
I most enjoy the shared experiences and love.
I most enjoy forging my own path.
I most enjoy becoming kinder, wiser, and no longer sweating the small things.
The John Edward Porter Legacy Award, generously supported by Anne Lurie, honors individuals who epitomize outstanding commitment to sustaining our nation's world-class leadership in medical and health research. The award honors people like former Congressman John Porter, my good friend and mentor and the former chair of Research America. During his time in the Congress and thereafter, John accorded research for health, and the NIH in particular, high status as his #1 priority. The award's benefactor, John's friend and mine, Anne Lurie, is also deeply devoted to medical research and has supported and championed research that benefits millions of children in the United States and across the globe. I know that John and Anne both feel, as we all do, that it is an extraordinary honor to present Dr. Francis Collins, the acting science advisor to the president, with this year's John Edward Porter Legacy Award. Dr. Collins served as the 16th director of the National Institutes of Health, where his remarkable leadership across 3 administrations inspired discovery and innovation and helped lay the foundation for future medical and public health progress. And just as an aside, as you know, Francis led NIH's history-changing work to decode the human genome. And now, another friend and admirer of Francis Collins, the world-renowned soprano Renee Fleming, will help us honor Francis's work. Then Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett, who, like Francis, has played an outsized role in the COVID-19 response, will sit down for a conversation with him about the past, present, and future of research for health. It's now my privilege to introduce Renee Fleming.
Thank you, Mary. I'm delighted to be with you this afternoon to honor Dr. Francis Collins. He's more than a mentor, more than a role model. He's a friend. And when I think about Francis's day in, day out work, battling threats that rob us of loved ones, health, hope, and time, there are simply no words that can fully express the gratitude he deserves. What I can, however, say is, Francis, thank you for all you've done, the great work you will continue to do. I, for one, am so happy that you'll be back in your lab, and I can't wait to see what you come up with next. And thank you for occasionally taking the time out to sing and play music with me. Now it's my pleasure to turn things over to Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett, Assistant Professor of Immunology and Infectious Diseases at Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health. She will join Francis in a conversation to take a look back over his esteemed career and give us a glimpse into what comes next. Dr. Corbett.
Thank you so much, Mary and Renee, for that wonderful introduction. I am so pleased to be sitting here with one of my favorite people in the whole wide world, Dr. Francis Collins. Dr. Collins, you recently stepped down as director of the National Institutes of Health. And as your farewell celebration highlighted, you have touched so many lives. You've touched my personal life, but lives also of other scientists at the NIH, the citizens of America, but also the citizens of this world. And just recently, you have been named as Acting Science Advisor to the President. For today's award, the John Edward Porter Legacy Award, generously supported by Anne Lurie, let's start with the word legacy. As a tie into that, now that maybe you have had some time to step back, breathe and rest, and reflect on your life and career so far, what are some of the moments that stay with you?
Oh my, that's quite an opening question, Kizzmekia. It's wonderful to be able to have this conversation with you. I will confess that I got asked, who would be the person you would most want to conduct this interview for Research America and this Legacy Award? And yeah, that's why you're there. So really glad that we can have this opportunity to talk about science and where it's been and where it's going. And you are certainly somebody who is a big part of where it's going with all that you've been doing in virology and immunology and all that you've done to make it possible for the vaccines for COVID-19 based on mRNA to be a reality that is saving millions of lives. So before we go any further, Dr. Corbett, thank you for your amazing contributions. And I know there's many more to come now that you're perched up there at the Harvard School of Public Health. Well, I am deeply honored to be recognized with this Legacy Award and just want to say thank you to Research America for this selection, which I certainly never expected. And, you know, I might also have to say it is a great honor to be part of a program that includes a lot of other people being recognized with awards who I am very much in awe of. People like Rosa DeLauro and Kay Granger are being recognized for their congressional role in support of NIH. People like my former colleague, Vivian Pinn. People like Jed Manacharian, who founded the Act for NIH effort that has made such a difference in getting visibility to why biomedical research is maybe one of the most important investments the federal government can make. So thank you, Jed, especially. And many others. If I go through the whole list, I'll use up all of our time. So you asked me a specific question. What are the moments that stay with me? You know, I guess this is a moment to kind of think back over the stretch of my experience as a biomedical researcher, which has just been an amazing adventure, maybe all the way back to my first opportunities as an independent investigator, trying to come up with solutions to problems in medicine that seemed like they needed attention. Back at the beginning of my efforts at the University of Michigan, deciding to take on really challenging, maybe unsolvable problems at the time about how can you identify a mutation in a gene that causes a genetic disease about which we know almost nothing except it's heritable.
And a big effort that my lab put into that, ultimately with a collaboration with Lapchi Choi in Toronto, finding the gene for cystic fibrosis in 1989. That was a moment, and it kind of opened the door to being able to do that for other diseases. Today, there's about 6,800 genetic diseases for which we know the specific DNA misspelling, which is pretty astounding considering where we were 30 years ago. I got to mention the Human Genome Project, the chance to lead that phenomenal group of 2,400 scientists. That's what it ultimately involved in 6 countries, all agreeing to put their shoulders to the same wheel and try to read out those 3 billion letters of the Human DNA Instruction Book at a time where it was really hard to do that. People listening to this, graduate students, are like, well, that's no big deal. I could do that myself in a couple of days. Well, it wasn't quite that easy back then. And to have that sequence emerge, to read out those letters, to see them appear, and to make sure that they got put on the internet every 24 hours with no intellectual property claims on them because it's our shared inheritance. That was just an experience of a lifetime. And now certainly since then, having the chance to serve for 12 years under 3 presidents as the NIH director, amazing things have been possible. I mean, Mikulski, you would agree that this is a moment of phenomenal exponential opportunity in biomedical research. And to be able to do things like start the Brain Initiative that's going to figure out how our brains actually do what they do, and work on the Cancer Moonshot, and put together this precision medicine program called All of Us, all of those were pretty amazing. Then, of course, we had this little interruption of this guy who arrived on the scene, SARS-CoV-2. And those years that I had the chance to try to bring together partnerships and figure out everything that we needed to do for vaccines, for therapeutics, for diagnostics, those were memorable, to put it mildly. And I must say, a willingness of scientists from every sector and every environment to just drop everything and jump in to try to see what they could do to save lives was inspiring. And the results of that, and Mikulski, you had a big part in this, namely having vaccines proven safe and 95% effective in 11 months by rigorous analysis, wildly outstripped the expectations that almost anybody would have put forward, and has made it possible for this terrible pandemic not to be nearly as bad. Although we still have this struggle, maybe we'll talk about that, about convincing the public that these are advances that everybody would want to take care of. So yeah, it's been a wild ride. And of course, I thought maybe I was going to have more time to reflect about this. This was supposed to be 2022, where I was going to have my equivalent of a sabbatical year to think deep thoughts, go back in the lab, which I love, do some writing. Well, that lasted less than 2 months. And now I, once again, I guess have a public service gene that doesn't know when to turn off. And when asked to serve as the acting science advisor to the president, I could hardly say no. So got a new job, and I'm honored to be in that role, trying to do everything I can for our country, for our president, to steer the scientific mission.
I think that there are obviously some concerns with trust in science that may be waning. And as someone who is a trusted advisor to the president, has been the trusted leader of what is the world's most phenomenal biomedical research entity, what do you think about the waning of trust in science, and how can we as young and enthusiastic investigators and scientists kind of help in that regard?
Well, I'm glad you brought this up, because all of my excitement about progress of science has to be tempered by this issue, which has emerged so blatantly and in such a terribly concerning way with COVID. That is the diminution, it seems, of trust in science. I didn't dream back in 2020 when you and the entire community of vaccine developers were working night and day to come up with an effective prevention against SARS-CoV-2, that we would encounter such a big problem of resistance. I mean, here we are today, Mikulski, something like 50 million Americans have yet to get their first shot. And something like 100,000 plus Americans have died needlessly because they were talked into some kind of misinformation about the vaccines that made them fearful of taking advantage of it. In the most technologically advanced country in the world, for this to have happened is deeply troubling. And it does say that trust in science has somehow really slipped at just the worst possible time. It's hard to put all the reasons together. There's certainly a history here of perhaps a growing sense that scientists were a bit elitist, perhaps a bit separate from the common people on the street. Maybe a sense also that science had an agenda that was not entirely to the benefit of others. I don't think that's true for all of us who have devoted our lives to this, and most of us have not gotten rich as a result. I think this is an altruistic enterprise, but not everybody sees it that way. And politics has gotten into this in a really destructive way, which is heartbreaking. To have your political party be the strongest predictor of whether or not you've been vaccinated just makes absolutely zero sense. But that's the way it currently is. I think maybe, Kizzmekia, you and I tried our best in the course of the last 2 years, and you did a lot of this outreach, trying to explain the science of vaccine development and explain the science of what this virus was all about. And you did a lot of good, and I hope I did some good, but I think we underestimated the resistance, and maybe we should have had a deeper think about how to organize our science communication in a way that would have had a better chance of being heard. Because I think for a lot of people, just like don't want to hear it because it conflicted with some other messages that their particular tribal group had already brought on board, almost as sort of like a litmus test. You can't be in our tribe unless you're opposed to vaccines. And that's hard then to get past that. So as an agenda going forward, I think we need a deep investigation into how science communication can be more effective in an area where people are intrinsically resistant. Maybe we are good at quoting statistics and not good enough at telling stories because people respond to stories. And scientists tend to say, well, that's just an anecdote. I can't use that as my argument, but it's what resonates.
Yeah, and during my time in this moment with the outreach that I've done, I think that one of the things that I realized too is that in our communications as scientists, sometimes we aren't necessarily listening. We're used to reading, but we're not necessarily used to listening, especially when people are not talking in a scientific language, which obviously the general public is. And so I think that we have to kind of add that to our arsenal of tools that we're going to use moving forward with our science communication. I do want to end on one final question. So one of the things that you and I have in common is that we are fairly churchy. We consider ourselves to be Christian. And so my last and final question is, what is your favorite Bible verse and why?
Oh, well, I have many, and that's a great question. And yes, I am a person of faith, and faith has been a rock for me to stand on, especially during the era of COVID-19 and all the challenges and tragedies that has brought to us. So I guess at the moment, I keep coming back to the Psalms when this is such a set of trials. And obviously the Psalms, many of them written by David, are very much about experiencing trials and how do you deal with that. And they're very real. And basically, it's not always like, okay, God, everything's fine here. A lot of the time, it's like, God, why are you doing this to me? But Psalm 46 is a regular one that comes back to my mind, especially in these last 2 years, that God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Isn't that interesting? So that says you're going to have trouble. Anybody who's going to say, oh, well, just have faith and everything will go smoothly. We all know that's not true. But when things don't go smoothly, God is there as a ever-present help in that trouble. I have leaned on that for my whole life, maybe especially in the last 2.5 years of COVID.
Absolutely.
How about you? What's your favorite verse? I got to go back to you on this one.
I waver on this, but I think right now with some of the things that is happening in my personal life, it is honor thy mother and father.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of those commandments, yes, that we should all think about and don't always adhere to.
All right. Well, I truly appreciate you having this conversation and mini church session with me. I wish you the best, and I
Should we sing or something?
we should have had a choir. I wish you the best, and I am so happy to know you. And of course, congratulations on this award and the plethora of awards that you will continue to get, as your career has certainly been a cornerstone of genomics, but just science in general.
Thanks, Kismikia, and thanks for agreeing to have your arm twisted to do this
it
interview.
took nothing.
It's a great honor.
I was delighted.
Hello, I'm Susan Whitehead, Director of the Whitehead Charitable Foundation. The Edwin C. Whitehead Award for Medical Research Advocacy recognizes truly outstanding leaders, particularly those who are in public office, who have shown a continued effective dedication to advancing human health research as a national priority, and who galvanize others in support of forward-looking science policy and funding. This award was created in honor of my father and the founder of Research America, Jack Whitehead. The Whitehead Charitable Foundation takes immense pride in being one of the award's two benefactors, along with the Whitehead Institute for Biomedical Research. My father's passion was to help improve human health. His vision for the future of biomedical research is what drove him to found Research America and to advocate for increased visibility and funding for the field. I am very proud that through the Whitehead Award, Research America is recognizing Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro of Connecticut and Congresswoman Kay Granger of Texas. These two outstanding awardees embody what it means to be a true vocal advocate for medical research. Now, it's my great honor to introduce Ruth Lehman, who's director of the Whitehead Institute for Biomedical Research and a professor of biology at MIT. Welcome, Ruth.
Thank you, Susan, for that warm welcome, and thank you, Research America, for this opportunity to recognize lawmakers who have demonstrated a steadfast commitment to advancing faster medical and public health progress. Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro is the personification of just that. Congresswoman DeLauro is a staunch supporter of funding biomedical research. From her leadership role in boosting the NIH budget to her unwavering, outspoken support for dramatically strengthening the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the Congresswoman is a force whose influence is critical to our nation's ability to conquer threats to the health and well-being of individuals in the US and across the globe by innovation in science and research. Thank you, Congresswoman DeLauro, for your dedication and leadership.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Peruccio, and I serve as Congresswoman DeLauro's Legislative Counsel and Senior Policy Advisor, where I handle health and human services for the Congresswoman. Unfortunately, Congresswoman DeLauro was diagnosed with COVID-19 and is unable to share these remarks this evening, which is why I will be delivering them as prepared for the Congresswoman. Hello, this is Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro representing Connecticut's 3rd Congressional District. I want to thank Executive Director of the Whitehead Institute and Board Member of the Whitehead Charitable Institute, Dr. Ruth Lehman and Susan Whitehead, for those kind words and generous introduction. Let me acknowledge Research America's Chair Emeritus, John Edward Porter, and thank him for his decades-long commitment to advancing medical and health research. In the late 90s, John Porter served as the chairman of the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Labor, Health and Human Services, Education, and Related Agencies, and under his leadership, we doubled the NIH budget. Please let me also recognize my colleague serving alongside me as ranking member of the House Appropriations Committee and the other recipient of the Edwin C. Whitehead Award for Medical Research Advocacy, Congresswoman Kay Granger. And of course, I must thank the researchers, advocates, and all members of Research America gathered here today. Your support means so much to me. I am humbled by this recognition of our work, and I want you to know this award means a great deal to me. I do not take this as a reward for what I have done. I take it as a call to continue fighting to help make a difference in the lives of families across our country. This is a special honor because the Edwin C. Whitehead Award for Medical Research Advocacy recognizes our shared commitment to advocacy for research and innovation that advances medical and public health progress in meaningful ways. It is critical for us to work together to strengthen our public health infrastructure, advance pandemic preparedness efforts, and support life-saving research that benefits everyone. We are making progress against deadly and debilitating health threats, but we must also prioritize public health and medical research so we can reach life-saving, groundbreaking results at a faster rate. So as chair of both the full House Appropriations Committee and the Labor, Health, and Human Services, Education, and Related Agencies Subcommittee, I will continue to fight for the resources needed to achieve better health and healthcare for all. That is why I'm so proud that we passed the largest increase for non-defense discretionary funding in 4 years last week that will have a real impact in the lives of everyday hardworking Americans. Among the many investments we secured, this bipartisan and bicameral federal funding bill provides $108 billion for programs at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. It includes investments that will help advance life-saving medical research and scientific breakthroughs by increasing the National Institute of Health's overall 2022 budget to $45 billion, ensuring each of its 27 institutes and centers to grow by at least 3.4%. The bill also provides $1 billion for President Biden's Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health, ARPA-H. With that, let me thank you again for this honor, and just to say, to please always remember that Congress is an institution that responds to external pressure. So to all the advocates out there, please continue to stand up and speak out for science, discovery, and innovation to achieve better health for all. Your voices matter, and they will continue to be heard. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Rush Holt. I'm on the Research America Board of Directors, and I'm very pleased to present the Edwin C. Whitehead Awardee, Representative Kay Granger of the 12th District of Texas. I served with Kay in the House of Representatives, and I know firsthand she brings vision, resolve, and an earned reputation for tireless work to advance the public good, especially as the Republican leader of appropriations. For her, biomedical research is not an abstract and distant activity. She takes it personally. Representative Granger's commitment to the research behind prevention is steadfast. She knows the best route to fighting disease is preventing the diseases. She also knows the effort must be global, and it must be sustained year in and year out. And there's more. If I named all of Kay's causes and health research-related caucuses, I'd be causing your Zoom fatigue. So suffice it to say that as a scientist and a former member of Congress, I am pleased to introduce this committed and esteemed leader whom we honor with the Whitehead Award, my friend, Representative Kay Granger.
To start, I'd like to thank Research America for honoring me with the Edwin C. Whitehead Award. I'm proud to be a supporter of programs ensuring the health and safety of my constituents in the 12th District of Texas and of all Americans as we seek to find cures to improve lives across the nation. As you know, the National Institutes of Health is the primary federal agency charged with conducting and supporting biomedical health and behavioral research in the United States. It's important to ensure that the National Institutes of Health has the funding it needs to support diverse and important research. This research has made the United States the envy of the world. The National Institutes of Health, through Operation Warp Speed and its partnership with private industry, was crucial in producing an effective vaccine. This effort continues to support advances in diagnostics, therapeutics, and the next generation of vaccines. As we continue to combat infectious diseases, it's important to make sure the scientific community has the resources it needs to be the leaders in this effort. We must also make sure funding is designed for robust research into cures for cancer and Alzheimer's disease. Unfortunately, we continue to lose far too many lives to these diseases. I believe we can do even more to target our efforts for these particular diseases and remain committed to ensuring they are prioritized for federal support. While our nation boasts the best healthcare research in the world, we must never become complacent in our efforts to find more life-saving cures and groundbreaking treatments. Thank you again for recognizing me today for all you do for the health and safety of this great country.
Hi, this is Congressman Tom Cole, and it's my great pleasure to be here tonight to say a few words about the recipients of Research America's Distinguished Whitehead Award, my very good friends and fellow members of the Appropriations Committee, Chairwoman Rosa DeLaura of Connecticut, and the ranking Republican member Kay Granger of Texas. Both of these individuals are just simply outstanding career professionals in the sense of having been public servants and having worked themselves up to the distinguished positions they hold today. Rosa actually started as a staff member and then went from staff member to member, then to the Appropriations Committee, and now, of course, sits at the top of the entire committee as chairwoman. Kay Granger had a distinguished career in business, became the mayor of Fort Worth, ran for and won a congressional seat, got to the Appropriations Committee, and she too has worked herself to the very top level, leading every Republican on that committee. But we're here to honor them tonight, not just for their personal accomplishments and what they've done individually, but because both of them have been tireless advocates of what Research America exists to advocate for itself. That is biomedical research. Under their leadership, we've had several years of increasing appropriations for all the critical agencies that make such a difference in public health. The National Institute of Health, the Center for Disease Control, our strategic stockpile. Both of them have been leaders at crafting the hard and tough deals that actually advance the country forward and make sure that we continue, even in difficult times, to make a steady inflation above inflation increases in appropriations for the critical elements of biomedical research. So it's my great pleasure to congratulate my two very good friends, my leaders. Both of them, frankly, lead me. Obviously, the chairwoman is the leader of the entire committee. My very good friend, Kay Granger, is the Republican leader. And I honor them both for their efforts, their sacrifice, their continued commitment, and frankly, the vision with which they both work together in a common purpose to advance biomedical research.
Hello, I'm Dr. Stephen Rosenfeld, Executive Director of North Star Review Board and President of the Rosenfeld Heart Foundation. It's my pleasure to present this year's Isidore Rosenfeld Award to Walter Isaacson, an author, journalist, and professor who has an extraordinary resume that demonstrates his ongoing commitment to informing and engaging the public. Among other things, Dr. Isaacson is a widely read, highly regarded biographer, capturing the lives and influence of such key figures in science and technology as Leonardo da Vinci, Benjamin Franklin, Albert Einstein, and Steve Jobs. And for those who missed it, he got a shout out on Jeopardy last week from one of his students at Tulane. His most recent book, The Codebreaker, Jennifer Doudna, Gene Editing, and the Future of the Human Race, has raised awareness about one of the most important developments and conversations in medicine, medical research, and medical ethics. As most of you know, the Rosenfeld Award is presented to individuals who have worked to effectively deliver medical or other health-related research advocacy messages to the public. The award was established and named for my father, Isidore Rosenfeld, who was one of the founders of Research America. Only occasionally a researcher himself, he had an outsized impact on the public's perception and relationship to medicine, health, and research through his innate love of and skill at storytelling, whether that was in the context of his books or his television shows. But One of the things we've learned from politics and from the pandemic is that storytelling is a two-edged sword. Scientists have been urged to use storytelling to engage the public, but the power and promise of science is that it is more than storytelling. It is storytelling that is grounded in tested experience. For my father, that grounding came from his care for his patients. Dr. Isaacson's writings, especially in Codebreaker, are grounded both in his experience and in the life stories of those about whom he writes. The beauty of this book, for me, is that it unapologetically reminds us that science, despite its aspirations of objectivity, is an entirely human endeavor. Humans are motivated by curiosity, by ambition, even by greed. When we lose sight of this truth, or pretend it's not so, we make science vulnerable to ad hominem attacks that make the findings of science seem like just another set of beliefs, a mischaracterization that robs us of the best tool we have for understanding ourselves and the world. This book acknowledges, maybe even celebrates, the possibilities that gene editing raises for the future of the human race. But it will be up to us what we do with those possibilities. Science may be about possibilities, but people make choices. And we can only make good choices if we learn from the kind of stories that Dr. Isaacson tells. We owe him our thanks. Now I will turn to Susan Dentzer, Chair of the Research America Board of Directors, President and CEO of America's Physician Groups, and one of the nation's most respected health and health policy thought leaders, for a conversation with Walter Isaacson. Susan, over to you.
Walter, welcome, and let me add my fervent congratulations on your receipt of the Isidore Rosenfeld Award. As Steve Rosenfeld just noted, during your fabulous career as a journalist and author, you've written accounts of many distinguished scientists and innovators, from Leonardo da Vinci all the way to Steve Jobs of Apple. And in your latest book, Codebreaker, you wrote about Jennifer Doudna, who won the 2020 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for her work on the CRISPR system of gene editing. But she really did far more than that, because for many readers, you truly opened up the black box of both basic and applied science. And you shed light on what for many people are the mysteries of both of those areas. And I'll note that in true journalistic fashion, you actually yourself went into the lab and conducted some gene editing. So bravo, that's really getting into your material. As I say, I was struck by how well you illuminated for non-scientists some of these really important facets of science. And one of them was this notion of science as being very often a one step forward, two steps backward endeavor, or sometimes the other way around, two steps forward and one step backward. For people who need to think about sustainable long-term funding of science, despite the vagaries of science, what would you say is your favorite anecdote from the book that illustrates the need for that?
One of the most important themes of the book is how basic science is pursued without knowing exactly where you're going to get to. In other words, you don't have a utility end game to it, such as in the book, you watch people looking at bacteria that have these clustered repeated sequences in their genetic code, and they're just pursuing it for curiosity's sake. It reminded me of Leonardo da Vinci, who believed that curiosity was the most important trait of a scientist, and that you test your theories based on evidence.
I was also struck by how you captured the really important duality of science, in the sense that it is on the one hand a team sport requiring amazing collaboration among scientists, as was the case in Doudna's lab, but it's also at the same time fiercely competitive. And as you wrote, it's that competition among scientists that really drives discovery. Again, cite a favorite example from the book that captures that amazingly important duality.
I think the duality is captured just in the past couple of weeks when we've seen the patent case between Jennifer Doudna's team out at Berkeley with Emmanuel Charpentier, having a patent battle with Fong Zhang and the Broad Institute at MIT Harvard. That quest for a patent in my book causes a great race to happen as soon as Jennifer Doudna and her team published the seminal June 2012 paper about how CRISPR can cut DNA. There's teams that race to see how do we apply it into humans? How do we make it work in human cells? The patent office has just ruled that by a few weeks, the MIT team actually showed how it could be applied in humans. I think that's good because it gives us an incentive to go very fast. The patents give also a financial incentive to spend a lot of money, whether it be at MIT or Berkeley on research, but there's a downside to it, which is that the fierce competition caused by patent battles make it so that people are more secretive. They hoard their findings initially. They don't share information as well. So we have to get it in balance, whether it's the pursuit of prizes, the pursuit of publications, or the pursuit of patents. It causes people to go faster, but sometimes causes them to be less collaborative.
Definitely pluses and minuses, and somehow we come out the end with products and innovations, despite the messiness of it all. Well, finally, I loved the advice that Jennifer Doudna got from her dissertation advisor, Jack Shostak, who advised her to, as he put it in quotes, ask the big questions. And you wrote that she forever took this advice to heart, always thinking about asking the big questions. As we think about basic science and R&D today, do you think we are asking enough of the big questions, as best as you can tell, as a community?
The basic question that Jennifer Doudna was told by her thesis advisor, Jack Shostak in the University of Colorado, to look at when she saw how RNA could replicate itself, he said, well, that shows that RNA could have been the molecule that helps life begin on this planet. So the big question is, how did life begin? Now the big question, and there's certainly nobody better than Dr. Francis Collins, but also Jennifer Doudna and others to look at, is how does our genetic code interact with environmental factors and other factors to cause diseases, make us who we are, and to what extent should we edit that genetic code? Because as I describe in the Code Breaker, we're the first species in 3 billion years that has developed the ability to hack its own evolution, to edit its own genetic code.
Truly the biggest questions of all. Walter, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan and Walter. What a terrific discussion. It is now my honor and privilege to introduce our next guest, Joaquin Duato, CEO of Johnson & Johnson, who will open our next suite of awards, the Outstanding Achievement in Public Health Awards, generously supported by Johnson & Johnson. For more than 30 years, Johnson & Johnson has been a highly valued strategic partner to Research America, contributing expertise, vision, and unwavering resolve to our shared goal of improving and saving lives through medical and public health research. Johnson & Johnson's support of our suite of public health awards is a further, most generous expression of their partnership and determination to work toward a world free from disease. The COVID-19 pandemic has helped raise awareness of the pivotal role our nation's public health ecosystem plays when emergencies strike. These awards are a means of celebrating and championing the role individuals and organizations play through research, communication, and public-private partnerships to confront public health threats that jeopardize our security, prosperity, and well-being. Thank you, Johnson & Johnson, for your partnership in supporting these awards. Joaquin, over to you.
Thank you, Mary, and hello, everyone. I'm pleased to be with you today. It is an honor to witness the outstanding work being done in the medical, health, and scientific research fields. At Johnson & Johnson, we are committed to tackling the world's toughest healthcare challenges. This work cannot be done alone, and therefore collaboration is always essential. It is important to take every opportunity we can to elevate the most valuable contributions to public health. The work you do needs to be recognized and needs to be celebrated. As a long-standing strategic partner and founding member of the Research America Alliance, Johnson & Johnson is proud to help recognize these valuable contributions by endowing the Outstanding Achievements in Public Health Awards. These awards will be given annually, and the 4 categories are Outstanding Achievement in Public Health, Building the Foundation, the Rapid Translation Award, and the Meeting the Moment for Public Health Award. Each of these celebrates and honors the individuals and organizations whose remarkable work is making a profound difference in public health. This year, honorees are addressing some of the greatest health challenges of our time: smoking cessation, diversity in clinical trials, and fueling collaboration to advance solutions for COVID-19. My heartfelt congratulations to all of this year's honorees. The public health community, Johnson & Johnson, Research America, and most important, patients around the world, thank you for your tremendous contributions.
Hello, I'm Jessica Mega, co-founder and Chief Medical and Scientific Officer at Verily, and a member of the Research America Board of Directors. It is my true pleasure to introduce this year's award for Outstanding Achievement in Public Health. This award honors individuals for their extraordinary work and enormous contributions to public health. The 2022 awardees are 2 exceptional leaders in public health. Matthew Myers, president of Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, and Bill Novelli, founder and first president of the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, and currently he is founder and professor of the Business for Impact program at Georgetown University, McDonough School of Business. In 25 years at the state, national, and global scale, Tobacco-Free Kids has become the leading advocacy organization, working to reduce tobacco use and its deadly consequences. Through years of targeted messaging and advocacy campaigns, the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids and the Tobacco-Free Kids Action Fund work hard to effectively change public health attitudes about tobacco and promote proven policies that are successful at reducing tobacco use and saving lives. Joining our honorees in this conversation is another leader whose influence in public health makes a tremendous impact day in and day out. My fellow board member, Dr. Georges Benjamin, Executive Director of the American Public Health Association. Welcome, Georges.
So let's start with each of you telling me how you got from here to there. You know what I mean by that is, tell me a little bit more about your journey and the tremendous impact on public health that you've had, which really prompted you, and what prompted you to play this role?
Well, Georges, I started in New York in commercial marketing, and I had this light bulb moment when I figured out that I could apply marketing to health and social issues. From there, back in my Porto Novelli days, our biggest client was the National Cancer Institute. And I think you'll appreciate this. In those days, physicians and nurses were smoking at higher levels than the general public. And our job was to try to do something about that. And so that's how I got really interested in the big difference that tobacco control could make.
Matt, what's your side of that story?
Well, I'm a slightly different equation, but similar in some ways. I'm a lawyer by training and experience. And as a young lawyer, first with the ACLU and then with the Federal Trade Commission, I recognize that we as a nation have big problems that are hard to solve one by one, and that we have the tools to make a difference in ways to impact whole populations if we use those tools. And it's the only way that we would solve really big problems.
So Bill, can you tell us a little bit about what the best advice you can give us based on what you've learned? And then Matt, maybe you can follow up and give us answer the same question.
Well, I think the best advice, the best lesson I ever learned was teams. You know, you can't do anything without teams. And we were lucky to have a great team. We have a great team at the campaign today. And, you know, a movement is really a lot of teams working together. So when we started out, we had the American Cancer Society, the American Heart Association. They're still with us. George, as you'll appreciate this, in the public health world, the American Medical Association, pediatrics, all these different organizations came together. And really, a movement is a bunch of big teams coming together to make a difference.
You know, let me echo that. One of the clear lessons that we learned in our work is that you can adopt policies, but unless you bring along the public, unless you educate the public, unless you work with broad ranges of civil society, including the individuals who are going to be impacted, you won't bring about the lifestyle change that you mostly care about.
Absolutely. Bill, let me go back on that. You know, I got your latest book. I got my copy the other day, and you know, your book talks a lot about affecting change in the public and the policy arena. Can you tell us a little bit more about your thoughts based on the book you just wrote?
Well, I think that the book argues that you know, we can make a difference. As Matt said, we can move mountains, and the book is basically about that. But, you know, we have to do two things at once. We have to work with policymakers top down, but we also have to work bottom up. We have to have a grassroots. And all the different organizations that we work with really represent the grassroots. The tobacco industry can never have a grassroots. They might have all the money in the world, but they can't really duplicate real people working at local levels. So I say top down, bottom up, that's how you get it done.
Absolutely. And Matt, you know, you've built this enormous coalitions over your years in terms of building, doing policy development and just motivating people to come together collectively. Can you talk a little bit about that work?
Well, you know, I think one of the most important lessons is the ability to step back periodically. The work we all do on a day-to-day basis is really hard, and we don't always succeed. But one of the exciting things about the work at the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, working with all of our partners, is when you take a step back, you realize the change you've made. When the campaign was created, 36% of high school kids smoke. Today, 5% of high school kids smoke. There's been an estimate that as a result of the policies that have been changed since the campaign came into effect, in the United States, roughly 8 to 10 million fewer people will die prematurely from tobacco use. And globally, the number is as high as 35 million people. There aren't many things you could do to make that big a difference.
Absolutely. Well, as you know, Research America, that's what we're all about, is a coalition of the willing, trying to advance science. And quite frankly, the two of you have shown us the way on that. It's been really great catching up with you today.
Thank you, Georges.
Thank you, Georges.
Hello, I'm Nancy Brown, Chief Executive Officer of the American Heart Association and a proud member of the Research America Board. I am very honored to present Research America's Outstanding Achievement in Public Health Award to Dr. Vivian Pinn, former inaugural director of the Office of Research on Women's Health at the National Institutes of Health. Vivian is a transformational leader and someone whom I admire so very much. Her remarkable track record as a champion for women's health has forged a path for women to have a voice at the table and succeed in science and research fields. As a fierce advocate for equity, Dr. Pinn knew early on how important it was for all women to have opportunities in science and research. Vivian, I'm so delighted to be with you today for our quick conversation. Thank you so much for accepting this award.
Thank you. This is a real honor for me that Research America is honoring what we did or tried to do in terms of women's health research and women's careers in science.
Well, I would say you did more than try. Your track record is impeccable, and I think it really laid a roadmap for so many of us to follow. And I want to thank you for these impactful contributions that you have made to public health research. You have this incredible career you can look back upon, and I wonder what you are most proud of in that amazing career.
Well, I think there are two things that I would have to say. One is looking at women's health research, the fact that now 30 years after the establishment of the office, that research design at NIH has changed, and it is now accepted that if you're designing a research study, that it needs to include both men and women and give attention to sex and gender factors. And I remember when that was fought and was thought to be an alien concept, and now it's really sort of taken for granted. And the fact that our efforts did change how research design is done, I think is one of our greatest accomplishments. I'm often surprised when I'm somewhere and someone that I would not even think had given attention to will introduce me and point out how that has changed over the years. And then in terms of personal achievements, I think plaques and awards are nice, but to me, what has been most fulfilling is seeing the achievements of my former students or residents, of those that I have worked with over the years or mentored, or maybe just seen for a while for a session to give advice, and to see the wonderful achievements of my former students and mentees.
Well, always modest, Vivian. You have impacted the lives and careers of so many people, and you've made such positive changes to encourage and inspire women to pursue these careers in science and research far beyond your mentees and students. I think an entire, generation or two of women have thought that this was possible because of you. And now here we are with many younger women considering pursuing careers in science and research. What would be your advice for them? What do you hope that they can accomplish?
In thinking about young women today who are considering careers, especially in biomedical research, but in any aspect of STEM, I hope that they can see the models that are out there. We used to talk about having role models. Now, there are far more role models. And to see that there is more equity of opportunity. And where there is not equity of opportunity, it's up to us who are in these fields to make sure that those doors are open. And so they do have not just a seat at the table, but a voice in decision making. And that's something that we need to continue to make sure occurs.
Well, Vivian, as always, that is so inspirational. And again, on a personal note, I want to thank you for being an inspiration to me and to my organization, the American Heart Association. You have been a role model to so many, and you have touched far more lives than you will ever imagine. Thank you again so much for allowing us the opportunity to recognize you with this Research America Award. And now I want to share a special message with you from one of your admirers, Senator Barbara Mikulski. Over to you, Barbara.
Hi, I'm Senator Barbara Mikulski, and I'm so happy to join with you this evening to celebrate my good friend, Dr. Vivian Pinn, for receiving the well-deserved Outstanding Achievement in Public Health. Dr. Pinn is a national treasure. As the inaugural director of the NIH Office of Research on Women's Health, she's been a driving force in America's approach to women's health and women's well-being. Dr. Pinn made history, and she changed history by ensuring that women were included appropriately in NIH and other women's research protocols. She's been instrumental also in developing a pipeline for women to enter and succeed in careers in science and medicine, transforming the face of these fields, fighting to ensure they represent the populations and patients they serve. Dr. Pinn is a trailblazer whose forward-thinking and forward-looking approach to the nation's public health has helped save lives. She's helped save lives 1 million at a time. I hope you'll join with me in lifting a virtual glass to salute our good friend and extraordinary achiever, Dr. Vivian Pinn.
Hello, I'm Seema Kumar, Global Head, Office of Innovation, Global Health and Scientific Engagement at Johnson & Johnson. I have the pleasure of introducing the 2022 Rapid Translation Award, which this year is recognizing the Accelerating COVID-19 Therapeutic Interventions and Vaccines, or ACTIVE initiative. The Rapid Translation Award honors a public-private partnership that has made a critical contribution to public health progress, and ACTIV has more than met that mark. Announced in April 2020, the ACTIV Public-Private Partnership was established to develop a coordinated research strategy for prioritizing and speeding the development of the most promising COVID-19 treatments and vaccines. Led by the National Institutes of Health, ACTIV brought together a distinguished team of scientists from government agencies, biopharmaceutical companies, academic institutions, and philanthropic organizations to pursue this crucially important objective. And now, I'm pleased to introduce my ex-colleagues, the inaugural co-chairs of this effort, Dr. Francis Collins, former director of the National Institutes of Health and currently the acting science advisor to the president, and Dr. Paul Stoffels, formerly vice chairman of the executive committee and chief scientific officer of Johnson & Johnson, and now the incoming CEO of Galapagos. And they will provide us a brief inside look about the concept and the start of ACTIV. Francis and Paul, over to you.
Well, hello, everybody. It is a great honor to have the ACTIV partnership recognized this way by Research America. When I looked around in March of 2020 to see what was happening as far as clinical trials of therapeutics, it was a scattershot. There were a lot of very small trials, well-intentioned, many of them being run in academic centers with internal funds, NIH not really supporting a lot of those at that point, when there are hundreds of possible therapeutics being discussed and no coordinated way of how they're going to be rigorously tested. So I made some phone calls, and one of them was to you.
Francis, thank you for asking the question in the introduction. It was like an amazing time where the world was confronted with a disease which we didn't know how to handle it, how to prevent, how to treat. Massive number of people got very, very sick, and we had to do something fast. And I found it amazing on when you asked the question, could we start this up? I contacted, and you contacted, we contacted all the partners, and it was like an unprecedented response. Yes, we can do this. Yes, we have to do this together. And it was incredible. And I would call it the unconditional commitment from all the people, from your teams, from the NIH, from the FDA, from the US government, from academic teams, international collaborators around the world. The scientists in pharma, the same thing. It was an open, transparent, very direct collaboration. And then the clinicians in the world who executed the studies, amazing on how it went fast. The data, transparency, sharing data, everything was like how you couldn't have hoped for a better type of collaboration between all the parties.
And Paul, gosh, the people who joined onto this in the working groups that got established, I think there are about 100 people, partly from industry, partly from academia and government, who basically dropped everything. I swear those people were meeting continually, and many of them working 89 hours a week, just because of the intensity of the needs.
And it was really amazing, Francis. And the coordinating team was very critical on making the selections, driving the protocols, making sure that it went through all the rigorous scientific reviews, that the quality of the science, I must say, did not suffer from the speed we took. Everything was done very rigorous and very quickly, but at the same time at a very high quality. But then down there in the cascade, if you look at the people who were then preparing the clinical trials, executing them, and also in the companies manufacturing the interventions in parallel with to make sure that they would become available at the moment the intervention showed activity.
So Paul, do you think, based on this experience, there are lessons here, because most of us don't think this was the last pandemic that the world is going to have to face. Based on what we've done with ACTIV, are there things we should be thinking about as far as preparing if some future viral pathogen suddenly emerges?
Yeah, we started with Ebola, and we know, you remember, Francis, in West Africa, that was the first effort where we said we need to get better prepared. Let's do something to anticipate. And the West scientific works was ongoing, including some coronaviruses, but nobody would have expected that this would happen so fast, so massive in the world. That's the lesson here. We need to advance science faster on a global scale, monitor, make more interventions, study more viruses so that we are much better prepared, and keep part of the infrastructure in place which we have now to combat pandemics, that next time we can do it fast, efficient, and make sure that pandemics could be much worse.
The power that's made possible when you bring the best and brightest and most visionary scientists from all the sectors around the same table, recognizing that in that kind of collaboration, you have to focus on things that are pre-competitive. But what you can do together is so impressive compared to what would happen if we were working in parallel without taking advantage of those interdisciplinary skills that are part of a partnership like ACTIV. And I hope, as you just said, that that's a lesson we can learn that doesn't apply just to pandemics, but to lots of other things as well. I think we're seeing that take shape in other areas with things like the Accelerating Medicines Partnership. But having learned it this way about COVID, there's even more reason to look of other places where this could happen.
And Francis, you are very close to the emerging new science, and it's amazing on what the science which is being generated today in the labs by the next generation scientists, the ability to even have more impactful treatments in neuroscience, in cancer, in inflammation is so important that this learning should give us the ability to bring this faster to patients. I think that is the whole mission here, on how can we have the breakthrough science like we did it in COVID. In 12 months, there were solutions for patients. What other breakthrough science is there to solve all the diseases which we can accelerate? It will never be done, never say never, but the 12-month time frame this was run and achieved with the vaccines, for example, it was very, very challenging, but it can be done. Yeah. So, and it saves the human lives. Therefore, why not?
Paul, I'm glad you came back to what really this is all about. We can celebrate all kinds of challenging scientific questions that partnerships can address, but what it's really about is helping patients and saving lives. I think what we did for ACTIV achieved that goal. We'll probably never know how many million lives were saved by the willingness of everybody to work together and not worry about who was going to get the credit, just get it done. And likewise, as we contemplate other partnerships, I'm thinking of one right now that we just are getting started on gene therapy for ultra rare diseases. The goal is not just to publish papers, although we do that, and it's not just to have a really exciting scientific adventure. It is to save lives. That's what we're all committed to. So once again, I just want to say thanks to Research America for recognizing, in a somewhat unusual way, a partnership as one of their important awards for this particular 2022 year. Thanks to them. And Paul, thanks to you. It's just been wonderful being your partner in this and many other things.
Thank you, Francis. And the award, the award, while it is given to us, I think it's for the entire partnership of people here from industry and the academic world working together in this COVID pandemic to get to solutions. I think the award is very symbolic for many more people than just for us. It is important that partnerships continue to drive science, translating science to human impact. I think that's what the partnerships are about. So thank you very much for this exceptional collaboration, and thanks to Research America for the award.
Good evening. I'm Charlie Dent, Executive Director and Vice President of the Aspen Institute Congressional Program and a proud member of the Research America Board of Directors. I had the privilege of introducing the Building the Foundation and Meeting the Moment for Public Health Awards honorees. The Building the Foundation Award recognizes individuals whose basic research discoveries have been pivotal to advancing public health, and the Meeting the Moment for Public Health Award honors those who have been a clear voice, playing a key role in communicating important health information to the public. Today, I'm honored to present the Building the Foundation Award to Dr. Christopher Murray, Professor and Chair of Health Metric Sciences at the University of Washington and director of the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation. Dr. Murray is an unparalleled leader in leveraging research to maximize quality, efficiency, and reach of healthcare systems. Our next honoree, Dr. Ashish Jha, Dean of Brown University's School of Public Health, is the recipient of the Meeting the Moment Award for Public Health. Dr. Jha has led groundbreaking research around Ebola and is on the front lines of the COVID-19 response, leading national and international analysis of key issues, advising federal and state policymakers, and serving as a trusted voice in the public sphere. Congratulations to you both, and thank you for what you do every day to protect and advance health and healthcare. I'm looking forward to your conversation today with Judy Woodruff, internationally known broadcast journalist who, it should not surprise you, has been the recipient of a Research America Award honoring her extraordinary contributions to science communication and awareness. Let's now turn to that conversation.
Thank you, Charlie. It is so good to be with all of you, and delight to be able to speak with Dr. Jha and with Dr. Murray. Dr. Jha, I'm going to start with you. You have gone from your regular job to being the chief explainer across the United States of this terrible and this confusing pandemic, which has turned our lives upside down. How did that happen? How did your role become what it is?
Oh, Judy, first of all, thanks for that question. One of the things that we've learned in public health is that public health begins with the public. And it became very clear to me early in the pandemic that we were in a very confusing moment, that people didn't understand the moment we were in, didn't know how to engage and what they should be doing differently. And that explaining the pandemic to the public was a key feature of our public health response. Every bit as important as getting tests and vaccines and therapies and all the other stuff. And so I've been involved in that, trying to be helpful to the American people, to help them understand both what's happening and what they need to do in their own lives to keep themselves safe.
And it's come about suddenly. I mean, we saw you. I remember the very early days of the pandemic. You were your voice was one of the ones people were turning to.
Yeah, it's sort of all a little bit of a blur. I just remember the early days getting asked to come on television and doing print and other types of media. And I think people found it helpful, presumably, and that's why people asked me to come back. And and I really tried at that moment to think about what would be helpful for my family and friends, and try to communicate to people in a way that I thought was accessible and useful, and hopefully it was helpful to people in making the decisions and trying to navigate this very, very complex moment.
And Dr. Murray, what about you? I mean, how did you originally become interested in the metrics, the measurement of healthcare? And then I want to know how that transformed into your being in the middle of our monitoring this pandemic.
Oh, that's a pretty long story. It goes back to my parents, who did medical work in sub-Saharan Africa for much of the time I was growing up. And sort of, as a child, I really already was asking a bunch of questions about why were people so sick in different countries and what could we do to improve health. And that sort of led me down this pathway of trying to get better understanding and better data about both health outcomes and health systems. And, we built up at the Institute here for Health Metrics and Evaluation a big capability to do that sort of measurement around the world. And so it's natural to pivot to COVID when the pandemic erupted.
And so when COVID erupts, when the pandemic happens, is there any question that you're going to be at the center of trying to understand just how big and how pervasive it is?
Well, we started out being asked by our own hospital to help them in early March, because Seattle was one of the first places to have a community-based epidemic, to just plan for human resources and hospital capability. And it sort of snowballed from there. Within a matter of days of doing that, we had many hospital systems around the U.S. asking us to do that. And then in March, late March, we released state-specific forecasts for that purpose. And then the White House and others started to use them. And then we spread to other countries. So it really just took off in a way that we didn't foresee.
Dr. Jha, what would you say is for you the biggest lesson from this pandemic?
Yeah, the biggest lesson for me has been the importance of communication and consistent and clear communication with the American people. I think that's something that when those of us who've been thinking about pandemics for a long time, we're preparing and we're thinking about how do you make sure you have a good pandemic response. We often think about laboratory capacity and data infrastructure and vaccine capability, all incredibly important things. I think we have underemphasized the importance of effective, consistent communication. And that is something that is a lesson I think we've all learned, the importance of doing it and the costs of when we don't do it effectively.
For sure. We've certainly learned that in the news media. Dr. Murray, what about you? What would you say is the greatest lesson for you so far from this pandemic?
Not to be overconfident in our understanding of who's ready and who's not. It turned out that, we all thought the U.S. was particularly well prepared for pandemics. And the numbers show a very different story. And in fact, when you look at the data, only one thing predicted countries' ability to respond well, and that was trust in government and trust in each other. And that's a pretty humbling lesson to learn, because I think we all thought it was about laboratory capacity and responses and the scientific community, and it turned out that those haven't been the key drivers of success.
Well, I cannot thank the two of you enough. Dr. Chris Murray, Dr. Ashish Jha, congratulations on your awards, and I'm so happy to be able to have this conversation with you on behalf of Research America. Congratulations, and thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, that was just amazing. Every year, my breath is simply taken away by our special guests and honorees. Your words have been so inspiring, especially as we continue to navigate the COVID-19 pandemic and work to assure effective and equitable solutions to prepare for and respond to additional threats to the health of the public. I want to take one more moment to thank our corporate event host, Johnson & Johnson, our collaborating sponsor, ACT for NIH Foundation, our future innovators sponsor, Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, and all of our tremendous supporters that we have highlighted on our screen. Special thanks to our benefactors. You are the heart and soul behind the Advocacy Awards. And finally, thank you to our honorees, special guests, Research America board members, alliance members, my colleagues on the amazing team Research America, and all of you watching tonight. Your support is invaluable. I hope to see you again next year at the 2023 Advocacy Awards. Good evening.